Well, here's the thing. I mean, we want to know about why is it important that parents actually take care of themselves?
Yeah.
You know, the perfect analogy is when you go on the airplane, they warn you in advance, right? If the pressure in the cabin gets too high, these things will fall down from the sky, and it's important for you to put it on yourself first. That's the same thing that happens for us as parents. The pressure is going to get high, and grace will fall from the sky, and it's important for you to take some for yourself first.
Yeah. That's good.
I've found that if I am not being gracious with myself, all of that pent-up frustration, it comes out on my children.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's really helpful for me to take good care of myself first, just settle, calm myself before I address things that might be upsetting or challenging with my children.
I love that. What about for you, Roxanne?
Yeah, I agree. I think we cannot parent out of a place of frustration, of anger, of fatigue, disgruntledness. It all stems out, it all flows out onto our children, and they are absorbing all of those things. They are learning from us. They're learning how to navigate life from us, and if we're not taking care of ourselves, then they learn that they don't need to take care of themselves either. They learn that other people's lives, the other responsibilities are more important than themselves. And we need to be very, very sure to model that. Just a quick example, I talk to my children all the time about how rest is important. And everyone in my home knows that if mommy doesn't get enough sleep, it's not gonna go very well. And one morning, for whatever reason, the sleep night before was quite challenging. And in the morning, we're getting ready for the kids to go to school. And they're counting their Cheerios, and I'm trying to get them, we have to get to school on time. And I said to them, Mommy didn't get enough sleep last night, so you need to listen. When I ask you to do the thing one time, please get it done. And unfortunately, spilled over a little bit. And on the way out the door, my youngest said to me, Mommy, when we go to school, can you have a nap? I need a nap.
Because she knew.
Yes, right? It's so important that we take care of ourselves because the children are watching.
So we know the importance of it. We're all feeling guilty right about now. But it is important. But what are the obstacles? Like, why don't we?
There are an endless things of to-dos.
Right.
Like my to-do list grows.
Right.
As soon as I cross one thing off, 3 more pop up.
Right.
But that's just the way it is and always will be. So sometimes we prioritize things and getting things done because that's just what we do. But if we really think about it, those things quite often can wait, right? On a really deep level for myself included, when I find myself really anxious, when I worry, I hurry, and it's a cycle that keeps going and keeps going. So we're not always in the habit of being intentional about rest.
Right.
And, we talk about self-care as if sometimes it's just one thing, but it's actually a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle, so we don't always stop to examine where is the rhythm of rest? Where am I kind of replenishing and rejuvenating? And we just go and we just go and then we burn out because our lifestyles are not sustainable. Like we have the best of intentions, but it's just not possible.
I also find that we live in a society that glorifies busyness and the hustle culture. People get awarded for all of the work that they put in. If you work overtime, if you work this many days without taking a day off or vacation or a sick day, right? People boast about how little sleep they get and how many jobs that, all these things. And so that does not allow for us to take care of ourselves or to prioritize that rest. And it's time for us to change that narrative.
Well, I agree with you. I think our culture focuses on outputs. God focuses on inputs.
Right.
When you squeeze a water bottle, whatever you've put in it will come out.
That's right.
And I think a lot of times as parents, we're so focused on the outputs, the results, the outcomes, what people think, how our kids look, how they appear. And really, the biblical model is completely reversed. Make sure you're inputting peace, joy, grace, as you said. And then when pressure happens, because you're not going to be able to avoid pressure, it will happen. It happens to everybody. whatever's inside will come out. And so if you don't like what's coming out, maybe change what's going in.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Can our kids hit burnout? Like, what are we teaching our kids if we're not taking care of ourselves? How does that translate in their world?
Well, I think it translates to that need to always be doing something and always hustling. And what happens is if you're constantly doing, then you have no time for reflection. You have no time to check in with yourself. Right. How am I feeling? How is this thing making me feel? We live in a society that's always busy. And so we have to be careful. Yes, sometimes we want the children to do the things or have the things that maybe we didn't as children. But if they're constantly at music, at tennis, at hockey, at, French, at ballet, like all the things all the time, when does that child even get to rest?
Right.
Right? We really have to pay attention to giving them moments where they can just be. Be themselves, be by themselves, have some laughter, put a puzzle together, right? And just acknowledge and recognize what it means to be in a state of rest.
Yeah.
Do you think it would help if we redefine success for our kids?
100%. 100%.
Like, what if success was just being healthy and happy and whole, right?
100%. I mean, we are human beings, but we live as if we are human doings.
Exactly.
And I think to your point and to Roxanne's point, our culture is very fast-paced, it's very busy. There's an absence of stillness.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I hear from God most when there is stillness, when there is quiet. And it's important that we integrate that into our culture intentionally and model with our kids. We can slow down and just be with our kids. If that means watching something or if that means turning it off, if it just means going for a walk, just be intentional about slowing the pace as part of the caring for yourself and also being with them.
I love it. I'm breathing right now.
I know, right?
Just slow down.
Why Bill breathes. We'll be right back with more healthy tips for parents right after this. Take a breath, Bill.
I'm going to.
If you or someone you know is struggling today, we want to help you find hope and healing. Call our prayer lines at 1-855-759-0700 and you'll receive Successful Families and our Book of Hope. We'd love to pray for you and provide you with the tools for your journey towards wholeness. We're offering them for free when you call today.
We are having another amazing discussion. Thank you again for being here. And I just want to lean in a little bit to rest because I think for most of us, when we think of rest, we think of physical rest. Take a nap, get some more sleep, but it's much more than that. And so what are some other ways maybe or we could define rest and find it?
So when I think about rest, I also think about rejuvenation.
Right.
The things that kind of help me to breathe life into me. And everybody's a little bit different. I love going for walks. I love my alone time and quiet time. Journaling, like when I listen to what God is saying to me, I get filled with peace. And that's rest. That's being for me.
Yeah, it's good. What about you, Roxanne?
It's funny you should ask that because I struggle with that myself. I'm a work in progress, I will admit. There are times when I think about, okay, I'm not working, but then I need to fold the laundry, or then I need to make a meal or pack lunches. And when all of that is done, I'm standing there with my hands on my hips going, what am I supposed to do with myself? Yeah. But I'm leaning into that now. So now I'm going for walks and I'm listening to music and I'm sitting on my couch with a good book.
Good.
Or I'm having a cup of tea in the afternoon. Just allowing myself to quiet the noise, right? And listen to what's coming up for me and paying attention to myself. And oftentimes I hear from myself, from the Lord, what it is that I actually need and how I can address that.
Yeah, so good. Well, okay, the rubber's got to hit the road here at some point, Bill.
Let's do it.
Because the reality is we're not all home sipping tea. And even when we are sipping tea with especially children, there's chaos going on, right?
That's true.
Yes.
So help those watching right now. They're in busy years, want to self-care, but there's chaos happening in the home. And of course, what I'm hearing from you is healthy people respond in a healthy way. But how do we discipline? How do we address the chaos? How do we address things that need boundaries with our kids? What does that look like?
Well, for me, when my boys were younger, I have a child who is very rambunctious.
Good to hear.
right?
Good to hear.
I like
You're
that word. I
normal.
like that word, rambunctious. Good.
And he would tantrum, and he tantrum for a couple of years. And what I ended up doing was, as much as I could to keep us all safe, I would put my arms around him physically, right? And I would just sit there, not to obviously not harm him or smother him in any way, but to just help him regulate. Oftentimes people talk about self-regulation in children. What I like to focus on is co-regulation, right? They need to experience us being calm and collected, and they can now lean into that and learn how to be calm and collected. And so I would sit with him and breathe with him until he would calm his little body down. And then we'd be able to sit down and have a talk. As he's gotten older, as him and his brother have gotten older, we talk about it's okay to be angry, but you cannot be rude or disrespectful. We're gonna talk this through. If you need time to yourself, by all means, you can take some time. I don't banish them to their rooms, but if they need alone time to do that, then they can do that. But it's really, really important to model this kind of calming down for these children, because how the human brain works is that when we get really, really upset or angry, no one can think clearly. Right. This is why people do and say things that they regret after they've had they've had a moment to calm down, because the thinking part of the brain practically goes offline. Right? And the big emotion takes over. So it's really, really important that we help them to settle down. If your child is small, sit with them, have them feel you breathing, teach them how to take deep breaths, even in moments when they're breathing like this, right? Give them the time to catch up if possible, and that can be really helpful.
Wow, co-regulation. It just reminds me of that, good old leadership phrase, you can't give what you don't have.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, so what do you think about this? So here's a crazy idea. I have a few of those. Right? For me, with self-care, is actually anticipatory. And what I mean by that is in our family, we had a family value. We called it redock your neurons. When your mind is scrambled, like you said, when you're in an intense situation, you are chemically sometimes unable to respond appropriately. So when you anticipate, well, for me, rest is also in anticipation of this is going to happen, and here's how I'm going to respond. I found this really helpful with my children, where it'd be like, okay, we're gonna go into a game right now, and there's gonna be a bad call. Not that refs ever make those. There's gonna be a bad call, and when that happens, you're gonna wanna be angry, but here's what we're gonna do instead. So preparing your mind, transforming your mind. What do you think about that?
I think that's an essential part of parenting. A lot of the times we talk about how do we deal with things in the moment.
Right, or
problematic things in the moment or after. But it's important to kind of be prepared, not just for what's going to happen, but again, this family culture thing, where we actually see what's really great that happens most of the time. And we're investing and focusing on that. So like automatically, the problem, although it may be big, it gets smaller in reference to the rest of the good things that are happening, right? Because when we focus on something, all our attention goes there and it seems bigger than it is. That said, the heart of discipline is really teaching. So you don't come up with a lesson plan in the moment.
That's right.
You don't, like...
Even as a teacher, I know that.
Right?
Not a good one.
Not a good one,
You
right?
can have one, but it's not a good one.
Exactly.
Right.
So knowing your child is important, so you can create a lesson for that child, but also understanding what the behavior actually means. You can teach a child, don't do this, don't do that, but that's very different than saying, it's important for you to do this. So you can look at one behavior like a tantrum, and for one kid, that could mean like, oh, I didn't have anything to eat, or I didn't get enough sleep. Or for another child, that might mean like, this is not fair. Like something needs to change. So if you just focus on the behavior without having an understanding of what the actual behavior means, then your lesson plan is going to be irrelevant.
Right. I love that. And the only way you get there is by reflecting and reassigning.
Yeah, asking some good questions. Like asking the child, okay, right? You've had a moment to calm down. What was happening for you?
So good.
Right? Listening with your eyes. It looks like you were feeling this.
Right.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
And they might be like, no. Well, then help me understand what was going on for you. And then we start to help them express, right? We make room for it, we give opportunity for it, and we learn at the same time they do,
Yeah.
right?
So good. My favorite question, help me understand. Worked with my kids.